What's going on YouTube? Super Insane 18 here, and today I am bringing you an Invoked Dogmatika deck profile with a little bit of a twist, so let's go ahead and jump on in. Alright, so we are going to kick things off with the man, the myth, and the legend himself, Alistair the Invoker. Nothing really needs to be said about him, you all know how Invoked work. We are running 3 copies of Dogmatika Ecclesia. This is just the best searcher for the Dogmatika archetype. We do have 2 copies of Fleur de Lis. This is kind of like an Effect Veiler on steroids for this particular archetype. And rounding off the Dogmatika engine, we are going to be playing 1 Dogmatika Maximus. Now, I know a lot of people cut this for a while because people were actually playing cards to send off of it, being your opponent, what I mean, where they would actually get a benefit off your Maximus, but it's been so long and the decks are so streamlined right now that I don't think people are actually playing outs to this, so we do run that as well, and it is a very important part of our combo, which I will show you guys. We run 3 copies of Magician Souls. Now, Magician Souls is a little bit weird in this deck. We are not actually using the effect to draw multiple cards. You can use it if you have cards in your hand that you don't necessarily care for, but that isn't the point of it in this deck. The point of it in this deck is very specific, and I will go over that during the combo. We run 2 copies of Effect Veiler, 2 copies of Ash Blossom, and 2 copies of Ghost Bell. This is standard to what you've been seeing in my deck profiles since Crossout Designator came out. I think that it is a very good package to run for Crossout Designator. You have all of the hand traps that are detrimental against your opponent, and usually detrimental against yourself, so you'll have 1 to cross out, 1 to use. Moving to these spells, we do have our 2 copies of Invocation. We do not need a third because it is very searchable. We have 3 copies of Magical Meltdown to search our Alistair, pairing with 3 copies of Nadir's Servant to search our Dogmatika engine, and we are just going to pretend that this one is a secret. We are playing 1 copy of Called by the Grave, the 3 copies of Crossout Designator, 3 copies of Forbidden Droplet, just because this card is actually kind of crazy in this deck because of Crossout. Spoiler alert, we are playing the Winda package, so you can actually cross out your opponent's Droplet because most people aren't going to send a spell card. So if they try to negate your Winda and you have a face-down Crossout, you can actually send Droplet to protect your Winda, as well as just having Droplet to use against the format anyway is pretty incredible. 3 copies of Pot of Prosperity, and that lines up for the spells. We are playing 1 copy of Shadal Schism, 2 copies of Dogmatika Punishment, and finally 3 copies of Infinite Impermanence. This is a 42 card main deck, but it all works really well together, and because your entire deck is just based around 1 card engines, then, you have room to just play an immense amount of hand traps. So let's go ahead and move on to the extra deck. So for the extra deck, we do play a Psyframe Lord Omega and an Elder Entity Natis. These are both pretty much just for the Dogmatika Punishment. You're really never going to send them off anything else. We have our very small Shadal package with Winda and Apcalone. This is just to allow us to make Winda. They are the only 2 that are necessary in order to do it. We have 1 copy of Titaniclad just for our Dogmatika engine. It is a very important part of the combo, as well as it just lets you get more of your Dogmatika engine to your hand. Moving on to the invoked stuff, we have 1 copy of Kaliga, 1 copy of Purgatrio, 1 copy of Agoides, and 2 copies of Makaba. You can get away with only running 1 Makaba, but I like the idea of having a second for later game if you need to kind of extend further if they break your board or whatnot. So because we are playing 2, we are actually running Artemis alongside the typical Almirage and Secure Gardena. The Artemis will more often than not be used on turn 1. Just because you want to use these 2 because it lets you fill your graveyard with extra deck monsters for the effect of Maximus. But moving on to a later game state where you might not have the access to these 2 anymore, Artemis turns Alistair into a 1-card Makaba, so it really is just worth playing. Then we have 1 copy of Link Karibo, and finishing things off, we have 1 copy of Cross Sheep. Both of these are very integral parts of the combo, so let's go ahead and show you what that is. Alright, so it is going to be a 3-card combo, but the only card that we are locked into needing to draw is the Magician Souls. We do have Magical Meltdown and Nadir Servant, respectively, for the Alistair and the Ecclesia, so any combination of those cards will work. As long as we see the Magician Souls, we are set. What we are going to do is special summon our Magician Souls by sending a copy of Dogmatika Fleur-de-Lis to the graveyard. Unfortunately, it is the best spellcaster to send in this situation. Now, if you had spells and traps that you wanted to discard for the Magician Souls effect, you would do so here, but I do just want to show you guys that this is a simple 3-card combo, so I didn't want anything like my draws to affect it, and more often than not, you're not really going to want to discard the spells that you have anyway, but it is an option if you guys wish. We are going to take the Magician Souls and link that away into a copy of Linkuriboh. Now that we have that, we're going to normal summon our copy of Alistair, which will activate on summon, adding us a copy of Invocation to our hand. Next, we are going to immediately activate that invocation using the Alistair and the Magician Souls, so we are going to banish those, and that will summon us out a copy of Invoked Dogmatika. Next, we can use the invocation, put it back into our deck, and get the copy of Alistair back from our banish. And then we can link away the Dogmatika and the Linkuriboh into a copy of Crosssheep. Now, what we're going to do is move into our Dogmatika engine. Because we have an extra deck monster, we can special summon the Ecclesia, which we will do, and that will get us a copy of Maximus using her effect. We can then take the Linkuriboh that we have in our graveyard, banish that in order to summon the Maximus, and once Maximus is on the field, we can activate its effect, sending Apkallone and Titanclad from our extra deck to our graveyard. Here, the Apkallone is going to activate, adding us a copy of Shaddoll Schism. Now, normally you would have 2 additional cards in your hand, so if you didn't want to discard the Alistair, you could discard any one of those, it does not matter. But for the sake of showing you guys that it is a 2-card combo, or a 3-card combo, my bad, we are going to just discard the Alistair. Next, what we're going to do is set our Shaddoll Schism and end our turn. Titanclad activates an end phase, and this will get us another copy of Ecclesia so that we have a follow-up for our next turn, and this puts us in a really interesting position, because now what we can do is during our opponent's main phase, we can activate the effect of Shaddoll Schism. This will let us banish the Titanclad and the Apkallone, meeting the necessary requirements that we need in order to summon out a copy of El Shaddoll Winda, and then Crosssheep will activate on the effect or on the summon of Winda, which will allow us to summon a level 4 or lower from our grave. In this case, we will summon Invoked Dogmatika. So what we've just done is we've put our opponent under a really interesting lock, because they only have 1 special summon that they can do during that turn, and they also have 1 effect that they can use. So outing the Winda is going to be even more difficult, knowing that they only have 1 effect that they can use. And then, no matter what happens to this board, you have the Ecclesia in your hand to just start up again next turn, because you can just Ecclesia, get a Fleur-de-Lis, special summon that, boost all your attacks, and it really is just a really interesting combo, being able to lock them under both Winda and Dogmatika. Well, there you guys have it. Hopefully you enjoyed this deck profile. It is a very fun deck to play. Just being able to play this amount of hand traps to tell your opponent no, and just this many cards that tell your opponent no, it's always just a good time to negate everything they know and love. So if you like this video, make sure to like, comment, subscribe, share with your friends, and if you want to see the side deck, go ahead and check out my Patreon. For just $1, you can check it out, and it will always support the channel, so I would vastly appreciate it. Thank you guys so much for watching, and I will see you next time.